In the year 21X, Lord Boxman opened a store to arm his robot horde. But the heroes of Lakewood Plaza
are ready to fight! KO and Enid are in battle mode. Once you keep the bag, I silly all explode. Power up and fight, let's watch an episode of Lakewood
Podcast
Turbo!
All right, KO, Rad, and Enid are in battle mode in this inaugural episode of Lakewood Podcast Turbo. I'm your host, Wyatt, and my soul burns with justice. Who is here with me today?
I'm Buster, or Buster Corp, or True Buster. I have too many names, but it's Buster, and my soul burns with hunger.
Very nice. My other opening quote was going to be, that's the infuriating evidence, because I just laughed at that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we are here to talk about, to begin our long, hopefully not too long, journey through the entirety of OK KO, Let's Be Heroes, starting with the pilot episode, Lakewood Plaza Turbo. Thank God I didn't slip and say the name of our podcast there. That happened many times. The last podcast I was on, that happened many times during the Destroy All Monsters episode of that. So either way, Buster, it's great to get back on the wagon of doing podcasts and to join up with somebody. You know, we're Twitter mutuals.
Yeah.
We know each other well. We know each other decently. And then we're on, you were on our podcast at one point.
Yeah.
For the Gamera versus Gyaos episode.
And I still haven't watched another Gamera movie, even though I said I would.
Well, you should watch the Heisei.
Yeah.
You don't need the Showa ones. I mean, there's some good ones, but like...
Yeah, I know the Heisei ones are like the true bangers, but like, I need to get to that eventually.
Yeah, those are great. The episodes that we did are great. We have some good guests on for those episodes. But, this is a great opportunity for us to go and evolve beyond mere Twitter acquaintances and become soul-forged brothers in the sense of this is a show that is extremely important to me. If you're not aware, I have a YouTube channel named It's Only Magic, which is a reference to this show, but it's also a reference to animation because that's what I talk about. And I recently made an hour long, like over an hour long video. I know that's like child's play compared to some video essays out there, but for me, small time YouTuber doing this as a hobby, very much time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you, what is your history with OK KO? And then more specifically after that, what is your history with this pilot?
All right. So my history of OK KO kind of relates to this pilot, so I can kind of take two birds with one stone here. So sure. I think it was right when Nintendo was starting to like stir up.
Yeah,
like he was
that guy.
Yeah. And it was talking about Cartoon Network pilots. It was like one of his first videos. He used to do this like tradition. And he talked about Lakewood Plaza Turbo. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds really cool. I'm going to check that out. And I checked it out. Thought it was really neat. Got a lot of cool like references and characters. So we're going to talk about it all today. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I really hope this gets picked up for a full show, especially because there was mobile games for it at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then when it did get announced for a full show, I was like, let's go. This is like, it was like, and like Cartoon Network was promoting it pretty, like they do this thing where it's like anytime a new show happens, or they used to, I don't know anymore, I haven't kept up with the network, but like anytime they had a new show, they would like promote the heck out of it, and then after the first week, they stopped.
Yeah, basically, like most recent show, like the most recent big show was We Baby Bears.
Oh, yeah.
And like that it was similar with that, where it's like, oh, a whole bunch of videos and stuff, a lot of promotion for like the first couple episodes, and then at this point it's just like sometimes you'll see like Grizz funny moments, compilation on YouTube, but like that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Cartoon Network's kind of in a fucking really weird place. It's sad. I want to talk about it a bit, maybe in the next episode when we're talking about the series proper.
Yeah.
But there used to be a time when I was like really excited for whatever, like new cartoons coming out, like on the horizon. I'm like, man, I'm so excited for this new show. And that time it's kind of like evaporated in a way, just because like not saying that all the networks are making bad shows now, but like the shows that they're making like 2022 onward aren't necessarily like super appealing to me. You know, like stuff like comic book adaptations and things like that are just not necessarily what I care about, you know. Whereas like maybe we'll talk more about this show in the future in some way, but like Amphibia, I remember seeing like that being like shown at like a D23 or something like that, something early on in 2018, like a year and a half before it aired, and I was like feverishly excited for it because I'm like, oh my god, it's in, you know, some of the crew of Gravity Falls. I love Gravity Falls, you know. This show, like, oh, it looks like it's a full-on fantasy world. It's not like X-Files, which is like Gravity Falls, where it's like, oh, a real world and then there's a fantastical element underneath. This is like, oh, normal person in a fantasy world, isekai style. I was just like super excited for that, and like I felt like from that point onward, you know, like I wasn't really excited about like upcoming shows in that same to that same degree, you know. And I don't think it's me getting old because I was already an adult, you know, like well into adulthood by the time that like this came out, and by the time that, you know, especially Amphibia and Owl House and everything. But like I remember the pilot, you know, this was like end of high school for me, with 2018, or 2013, and like when Steven Universe started. I think that was like my first fall out of school was when Steven Universe began, and you know that was like a couple months after the pilot of that and this. Have you seen, like, how familiar are you with the Steven Universe pilot?
I've actually not seen it. I've seen clips, and honestly, I'm glad the show as we know it exists, because man, that pilot looked a bit rough. Like,
yeah, I honestly, like, I remember when it was new, and a lot of people, like, the show came out and they're like, oh, they simplified the art style, it looks a lot worse. And I'm like, I think it like looks more like, one, it looks way better and easier to animate.
Yeah. Like, there's two, a lot of like weird motion in the pilot.
Yeah. It's fully formed and everything, I think, in the full show. But like, it's funny because we'll bring this back to OK KO or Lakewood Plaza Turbo, but you know, those two were kind of proposed at the same time. Ian and Rebecca Sugar were partners at the same time. And they were like, okay, whichever one of us gets a show, the other is going to work and help, you know, work on that show and help them. So like Steven Universe got the show. Ian helped with the first season of Steven Universe. He did eventually come back at the very end of season 5 with Change Your Mind. And helped in some sequences there. But it's interesting that the way that Ian describes it, I'm not entirely sure if this is true or if it's just like politicky, sort of like getting around the point. But he says that the reason it wasn't picked up, Lakewood Plaza Turbo, was because that one wasn't fully developed. Whereas Steven Universe, like, you could see a path where this becomes a full engaging world and in a show, even from the pilot. And like, that makes sense to me. But I also kind of think like maybe the reason this didn't get picked up is because it's just too similar to regular show. You know, like it's like teenagers or like people in their 20s, you know, like that kind of demographic working at a menial labor, and weird shit happens around them. It's like both slice of life, but it's also like crazy off the wall, you know, swarming with magic robots. So what do you think? Do you think that that's like,
I do not agree with any of that. Like, that just makes no sense. Like, a lot of that makes no sense to me. I feel like if we compared this pilot, which we'll get into eventually, to like the full show, I feel like there's like, there's character design differences, but I feel like this still feels like an episode I would see in OK KO, you know, like in the full show. Like, this still feels like a basic plot, but a simple plot, like that would be in the show. And like, I don't really get the regular show comparison. Like, one is an action show and the other is like a sitcom.
That's true. That is true. That's just where my brain goes to when I'm trying to like put myself in the place of an executive.
Yeah. I mean, the executives
I'm
are
trying
dumb,
to be like,
so...
Yeah, like, because I know that there's a lot of differences and all the similarities are just surface level.
Yeah.
And, it wouldn't be until the full show that somebody from regular show, Toby Jones, would, like, work on and be, like, one of the executive producers of it. But I can kind of see, like, that maybe being the reason, though maybe you are right. It is probably more likely that, like, it is just what Ian said, that it's like, oh, the show just wasn't fully formed, yet. It kind of needed more massaging in order to get to that point.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, like, things that feel a lot more shallow in this pilot episode compared to the full series.
Yeah.
And that's not to criticize. I think obviously a pilot is supposed to just be a bare bones sort of like, this is what a show is, it's not necessarily supposed to be like 100% indicative of every single like the peak of what the show is going to be. And especially with this pilot isn't what sold the show. There was another separate pilot that they did that was like really funny according to the executives and everything, but they're like, all right, this now is just too comedic. We need you to come back to us with something with more heart and charm. That were like the keywords that they told them to do. And so they made the KO Rad and Enid shorts, and those were what sold like the full show and kind of like got them in the door and be like, oh, okay, I fully understand like what this show is, where it's going to go and everything. And then that's when it started to get like a lot more support beyond just like the mobile game and everything like that, and became like a full show on its own.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I want to, there's a couple interesting differences in this pilot. First of all, the art style.
Yeah, I have that in my
way
notes.
different.
Like, it's
Yeah.
more on model, like, to put it, like, I mean, also everyone has, as they would later define it in, like, a later episode, snickerdoodles or snickerdoodles?
They have big, like, sausage,
Yeah.
very big, like, very kind of, I don't know, they just have, like, the big old noses that are, like, the big red noses. It's a weird design choice, for sure. I felt like back then I didn't really notice it, because it was the only frame of reference we had for the show. So I'm like, yeah, this is just what the show looks like. But now that we have like 3 seasons of OK KO to look at, and then going back to this, I'm like, wow, that is weird.
They kind of look a bit Muppety.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Like a lot of, for some reason, maybe it's because I'm a huge fucking Muppet fan, but like I just see Muppets DNA in like almost anything that I'm watching. Like,
oh no, that's based.
Yeah, like stuff that's overtly Muppet related, or like Muppet references, stuff like Centaur World or whatever. Megan Nicole Dong is like, yeah, I was inspired by Muppets. Or Amphibia, as we discussed earlier in the show, like a lot of Kermit-y characters in there because they're all frogs. But like this, yeah, for sure, it has like, they have the Muppet, the big kind of like geometric nose and everything of the Muppets. Also, like the line art is a lot different than what you have in the show. In the show, it's all pencil drawn. So in this, like, it feels more like this digital kind of like very thin line art that is very similar to Adventure Time and regular show.
Yeah, because like as we're gonna discuss in later episodes, OK KO stands out a lot from the other Cartoon Network offerings at the time. But this feels like in line with like what you would expect on the network, like your Adventure Times and regular shows. Also a different theme song. Like, this is the only time they use this theme song.
KO Rad and Enid are in battle mode. Yeah, it's very like toy commercial.
Yeah,
and that it sets the tone that this show is like a big toy box full of like disparate different genres and everything like that.
Yeah, which honestly, like, amazing foreshadowing for later. Like,
I think like the heart of the show was totally found out. Like, they just, like, Ian knew instantly like what the show could be and like what it was like on an essential level. It just took a little bit to get to like what's the emotional hook.
Yeah.
You know, because like KO is our in, but you know, is like in this he's like a little bit of a different character than he is in the full show.
Yeah, he's a bit meaner.
You know? Yeah, a bit dumber. Like KO is kind of a foolish child, but like
he's more innocent.
It feels more like it's more of an innocent dumbness, whereas like this, like he feels like a weird little man. Like if it's somewhere between like Goku, you know, and I don't know, like a more maybe like Finn or something like early on in Adventure Time, where he's like a little bit more. He's not like a cool, nice dude. He's kind of like violent and angry. Yeah. You know, all that stuff. The designs, like as far as like character designs, Rad and KO are pretty much the same. Rad, he has like a little bit of the like puberty stash, which I think is funny. Yeah. Because it like fits in. He's like this big muscular dude, but then he has like the shitty, you know, the tiny little like scraggly mustache. But Enid is quite different. She has like a much longer ponytail and kind of like
Chun-Li garb.
She looks more like a kunoichi. You know.
Also, her personality was a bit different because, like, Rad and we already mentioned KO's personality is different. Like, just like in the minor way about he's a bit meaner. Enid's, I think, is just straight up a different character. I think she felt a bit bland in this pilot. Like,
yeah, I agree. I think like she maybe wasn't figured out. She is just kind of like the cool big sis type character. She's not like the fully three-dimensional character that she is in the show.
Yeah, she wasn't emo yet.
Yes, but Rad is mostly the same.
Yeah,
like I think obviously like maybe his deeper, you know, self isn't quite there yet, but you know, like as far as on the surface level, he's the same. I think just one thing that always surprises me is that in the show, KO and Carol, they have more of like an olive complexion, whereas they're like lily white in this pilot. So that's like, you know, it's like a change that I like that they made, like to the skin tone.
Yeah.
In the you know, in the full show.
Yeah. Actually, like the overall color palette feels. I don't know how to describe this other than soggy waffles.
Yeah, sure.
Like
I mean, I kind of like I get that's an evocative phrase, so I kind of get what you're
it just look waffle colored, like light waffle colored.
Yeah. The I don't know, this pilot, it has like action adjacent elements in it.
Yeah, I mean they blow up a robot.
Yeah, there is Daryl, who is a recurring character in the show, of course.
Yeah.
One of the Boxmore robots.
Voiced by Ian himself.
Yeah, voiced by Ian, which was like, I believe both Rad and Daryl were meant to be voiced by other people, but because pilots are kind of made completely slapdash, you know, they're made while you're making a pilot at the same time that you're also working on another show, essentially. So like the production pipeline of that is just completely different from like a normal 11-minute show. So like you kind of have to like cobble shit together sometimes. So he had to step in and voice them, but I couldn't imagine anybody else voicing those characters.
Yeah,
you know, as we would go throughout the regular show, or the TV show, not regular show.
Too many shows, man.
But one thing I want to point out that I always thought was funny, and has just gotten funnier over the years, is that when Daryl is like hooded in disguise, he has two eyes.
Oh.
And then like when it's revealed he has the one eye. That's just like such a stupid sight gag. Like just a little like visual design thing where it's like,
yeah, it kind of does play with the toy box motif of like, you'll have all these different characters and it's a kid playing with them, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like you could imagine like, a kid is playing with this toy that's just like a hooded figure with two eyes.
Yeah.
And then they swap it out with a Daryl one when he gets revealed, you know, and then it's the one-eyed Daryl, of course, like, he has, like, the one eye, but he has, like, the brain in the jar, very much like Darkman from Mega Man 5. And, of course, all of the Boxmore bots are very Mega Man-esque, but we'll talk about that more in future episodes when the other ones get introduced.
Yeah. Actually, for, like, how, like, slapdash you're talking about, I'm surprised they managed to get, for KO's voice actress, they got
Stephanie Nadolny.
Yeah, who voiced young Goku in one of the original Dragon Ball dubs. Which...
Yeah, was also the second, in the Funimation version of Dragon Ball Z was Gohan.
Ooh.
Like when they did the in-house voices, after the ocean.
There's just so many Dragon Ball dubs,
on.
it's hard to keep track for me.
Yeah. But essentially, like, the Gohan that most people remember, the Gohan that went Super Saiyan 2, and then, of course, Goku throughout the Dragon Ball dub. Stephanie Nadolny. I have, like, mixed feelings about her voice, because I do think it's, like, a little bit of a stunt casting, more so than, like I think they went, like, they made the right choice to change her.
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because it is a bit like compared to the KO we would get later, it is a bit like, a little like snot-nosed, for lack of a better word.
It's like and it's like not as emotive,
Yeah, it's
just
good at, like, sarcastic jokes, like the "wiener is you" line, but which always cracks me up.
I appreciate that's what the hell, like, some pro wrestling game on the NES. That's a reference to.
Yeah, something AVG uncovered.
A winner is you.
Yeah.
And another reference that I caught this time was that on the TV in the bodega, there's a big missile barrage that happens, and then it says "Buy Itano missiles." So, like, Itano, a Japanese animator, would always draw, like, these crazy, like, for Macross. Would draw these, like, crazy awesome, like, missile barrages. So it's like, there's a neat little animation reference right there,
Yeah.
And there are, in the, again, there are many anime references in the full series, but even just in this pilot, like KO, he's reminiscent to Goku, he's reminiscent to Ryu from Street Fighter, with the headband.
And, like,
the,
speaking
the
of Capcom games, like, freaking Mr. Gar is just straight up Mag Kygar, and, like, he even does his, like, super move from, like, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 at the end of this, and then I was like...
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, it's amazing that, like, to me, when I saw this pilot back in the day, I was like, man, this is so awesome and action-packed, but, like, watching it now, I'm like, man, there really isn't any action. It's just, like, characters will throw things at each other. Again, there's action adjacent, but there's no, like, big fight that happens.
Yeah, just kind of characters vibing, like, pointing at each other.
and there's the idea of, like, power battles.
Yeah.
Which is, like, something that's not really in the full series, where, like, heroes will, like, call a power battle against each other and then have, like, a duel, almost in, like, a Shaolin Showdown sort of way.
Yeah, or like a freaking Yu-Gi-Oh duel.
Yeah, something. Yeah, a shadow game.
Like, I'm pretty sure if that idea would get, like, if that idea was in the full show, they would totally have, like, a Doom Dimension Shadow Realm XP.
Yeah, I would love that. Honestly, like, kind of my dream show has been something that's, like, very similar to, like that has that element in it, right? Where it's like, people elevating, like, dumb games to, like, epic levels.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not sure if you've ever, like, maybe but you haven't seen some of the later Metal Hero shows.
I've not watched any Metal Heroes yet.
Yeah, but like, there's, like, Robotac and Kabutak are, like, those are shows that are very light on action, but they have, like, these two robots are going to fight each other, and they're going to play, like, they're going to pop each other's balloons or whatever, and then whoever pops the most balloons wins.
So there's just Mario Party at that point.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It, like, it's these very Mario Party-esque, like, little mini games that they play at each other instead of action, because, like, by the end of Metal Hero, it's, like, very, like, aiming down towards children.
Yeah, a lot of mascot characters.
Yeah, for sure. And like even the last Metal Hero show wasn't a Metal Hero show, it was RoboCon, which aired right before Kuga, by the way, in that slot. So it's like hilarious to go from goofy, very like problem of the week sort of cutesy RoboCon to like the first episode of Kuga is fucking horrific. People like violently dying. There's like the scene with the spider Grongi breaking in to like the bank and like crawling out of the police car and like its hands pressing against the glass and everything. It's like so beautifully creepy. But yeah, I don't know. That's like, I would have loved if they went that direction with this show. In that like doing the like sort of Mario Party style like challenges against each other, but I think it was just like it's too much. It's a hat on a hat,
Yeah,
like,
the show already has enough features. You don't need to add another.
Exactly. So yeah, all in all, like I still really enjoy coming back to this pilot, even after all these years. It's just like it's always interesting to me to just see where things begin. As far as like shows or games or whatever, like I just like to see like, oh, this was the original idea, let's see how much it changed over the years, anything like that. But there was a period of time where after this pilot came out, I was really excited for the show, but then like, oh, it never got picked up. It was kind of like legendary, like, oh, this is the pilot, Cartoon Network doesn't want you to see the full show of. But then they started to actually like make more Lakewood Plaza Turbo stuff.
Like shorts. They had like they had like a short that like kind of covered the like from pilot to full show, like all the little things they did in between, and like there was like a game jam, and I'm like, apparently like I saw like they showed a couple clips from like the games the developers made, and it's like I think one of them was like a Rhythm Heaven like freaking thing.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I love Rhythm Heaven.
I need to get into it, but I don't know where to start. But like,
yeah, I mean that's the thing. They should just put the Game Boy Advance one on Switch. Yeah, now that they have the Game Boy Advance
NSO
library is now on Switch.
Yeah.
So, but I do want to talk about some of those shorts that aired before the show proper aired.
Yeah.
And like, first of all, I was very like. One, all the shorts have like a crazy art style.
Yeah.
Like crazy animation style. All the designs are pretty much the same as would be in the full show, but like the Enid short especially like looks fucking crazy. It's like looks, it almost reminds me of like Galo Sengen. Like it look, like Bob Team Epic or whatever, like from Pop Team Epic.
Honestly, it kind of reminds me of another show Ian worked on, which was the Mount Fortress Awesome, the one that everyone hates.
Yeah. Secret Mountain Fort Awesome.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes. There's a bunch of Secret Mountain Fort Awesome references in OK KO because that was like something that he worked on beforehand, as well as like some Venture Bros stuff. Because that was like his first like big animation job. But it was funny, like, yeah, Rubber House is the animation studio that did the Enid short. I'm not entirely sure what else they did, but yeah, it like looks like really, it's like a crazy like indie animation instead of like something that you would see produced by like a big company like Cartoon Network. And I feel like, I don't know, like this show really did just kind of come out firing, with all cylinders, with like its creativity and its just like personality and everything.
Yeah, and like these shorts are kind of like I like you mentioned the Enid short, but I think all the shorts like are basically like they kind of started to like define what the show is. I mean, first off, you got the character designs they would use. Snooterdoodles are gone.
Yeah, gone.
And Enid's more defined as like kind of this like a bit angsty but a bit chill like emo girl who's like we'll get into her struggles when they eventually pop up. And then you got like KO's more nicer and innocent. He's more happy to be here. And then also the facial expressions on all of these. These are just like all expressive because like I always associate OK KO with just being like super expressive. And like we're gonna talk a lot about those expressions, I'm pretty sure later. But like it just this really started the very much creative way it would present itself. Like,
Yeah, the like the rad short is probably like the most fluid animation. It's by Yoda. It has like a very, it reminds me a lot of like Batman, Spider-Man, or like later Alligator, like those ones. I can't remember the animator's name, but like that person like has that kind of like very sort of wobbly, very expressive animation style. Like it looks pretty much like the show as far as like color design and character design and everything, but like it's just way more fluid. And then the KO short by Science Saru, who is the Masaki Yuasa animation studio, I was like, whoa, I didn't expect these guys to fucking do one of the shorts, so
well, I didn't expect them to pick up a Scott Pilgrim anime, but here we are.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, Science Saru, like, man, like they've done a ton of great stuff. Like Devilman Crybaby, is like fantastic version of Devilman. And Get Your Hands Off Azoken is like, that's a fantastic show. Yeah, I don't know, Science Saru, they're just cool, and the style of this short like really doesn't look like anything else that they've done. It doesn't look like Mind Games or like Devilman Crybaby or anything. It looks more like, it looks like promo art.
Yeah, like it's
come to life.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I've been thinking of like the way to put it, but like in promo art come to life is like the best way to put it.
Yeah. But like these shorts, I'll be honest, I talked about it in my video. So go watch that. It's only magicyoutube.com. But at that time I was kind of like really checked out of watching stuff on Cartoon Network. Very embarrassingly for me, and I'll out myself here, I had watched a video by Mr. Enter, who I do not like, by the way, but it was just like recommended to me. Like, and this is when I learned about his existence. Basically, like he made a video like why Cartoon Network sucks now, in like 2017, and he of course complained about Teen Titans Go and whatever. But like, I was like, yeah, man, he's right. It was better back then. And then like, I wasn't super excited for OK KO, but it was like some of the hype kind of like got to me essentially. I think I was just like in a bad mind space before that summer. And then like that summer we had like, oh, here's E3, here's the reveal of Metroid Prime 4, which still doesn't exist. Here's the reveal of Samus Returns. Oh, a remake of one of your favorite games. Awesome. Here's Sonic Mania, a fucking amazing throwback to some of your favorite games of all time. Here's like, in this, a couple months from now, you have Mario Odyssey. Just like, I was a lot more positive about life because of these consumer products that were being peddled to me.
It happens.
So I was just like, you know what? By the time that like August rolled around and when OK KO show started airing, that was when like I was like, okay, I want to check this out. I'm less like, my hype has been built back up because it kind of died out waiting so long for the show to come out. And these shorts, I completely missed them when they first aired. It wasn't until like going back and watching them like when the show started to air that I like became aware of them. So yeah, it's just like a weird, I'm glad I at least had that like that journey where maybe I was a little bit negative at first, but then like the full show sort of came and I was prepared for it. And we'll talk about that and how I feel about those first batch of episodes next time, and also over the course of the next few episodes of this podcast.
Yeah.
But I think that will do it for this first episode of Lakewood Podcast Turbo.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you want to get out there before we wrap it all up, or do you think that we sufficiently talked about this pilot?
Let me look at my notes. Yeah, I think we talked about everything. Oh wait, there was a Sonic 2 reference in the pilot. Apparently, I do not know anything about that, but apparently there's a Sonic 2 reference according to people. So I'm like, gotta freaking check that off the bucket list.
Interesting. It might be a background character. It might be something like.
Oh no, it was like a line. It was like a line where it's like "Go KO to the extreme." Apparently, like that was a Sonic 2 reference. So
the zap to the extreme. Yeah, that's the I know. You're bringing back bad memories.
I'm sorry. I don't know anything about it, so I was just like.
No, it's more so bad memories associated with, not against Chris Chan, but like. Remembering all of the people who would like obsess over Chris Chan and like ruin her life and everything, you know. But
that's a whole story for another day. Never.
Let's never ever talk about that.
There'll be no more Sonic 2 references in this podcast.
I mean, like, the my soul burns for justice. That's probably like the line that stuck in my head the most. The wiener is you. Lakewood Plaza Turbo smells bah. You know, stuff lines. Like that. Yeah. And I always like that. Just one quick thing that like Rad. You know, he's texting on a smartphone, but then when Gar picks it up, it's like an old like 90s cell phone with the like digital text, like black background, green text. And everything, I don't know. There's just something funny about that.
I guess Gar ages smartphones by like a few years.
Yeah, exactly. But either way, man. I guess you can find me. I was about to go into a Patreon spiel, but then I remember we don't have a Patreon. But either way, you can find me at It's Only Magic, youtube.com. You can find me at twitter.com/WazBranger. That's WAZP Ranger. Mostly just like streamer consciousness stuff. At this point, it's just me like, crying into just constantly talking about Metroid
based.
Just that's all I'm doing. Occasionally I'll talk about a PS1 game I'm playing, but otherwise I'm just like, Metroid Fusion should have already come out on NSO by the time that this aired. So like, play that game, play Prime Remaster, do it now. Buster, where can we find you?
At the Buster Corp YouTube channel. You can also find, if you want more podcast content with my voice in it, you can also go to the Modular Media channel. We have a Tokusatsu podcast. Ooh. We have a general podcast. There's podcast without me in it. It's fun. You can also, if you want to see me on Twitter, you can find me at BusterBeloy3, where I constantly retweet too much shit and also talk about how Doug Enders makes me feel good.
Nice. I've been interested in that for a long time, but never got around to it.
I mean, there's a new season coming, so
cool. Yeah, maybe you'll inspire me.
Hopefully.
Well, I'll do one more thing. If you are here on the small chance that you became aware of this because you're a fan of Discuss All Monsters, that Patreon is still up. I am still maintaining it, despite the fact that the podcast is now defunct. For personal reasons I won't get into here, but you can read at that Patreon. I will continue to maintain it, and it will continue to be, all the episodes and everything will be free. So if you want thousands of hours or whatever of content of me and my dear friend Nikki talking about crap, then go there. If you enjoyed this, check that out. Maybe down the line we'll find a way to monetize this podcast, but who knows? We're just starting out. So for now, we're just having fun doing it this way. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time as we talk about episodes 1 and 2 of OK KO. See you there.
Radicles? A wiener is you!
What?
You have the infuriating evidence!